All right, welcome everybody. Crown Council Live. I am Stuart Anderson. Today is January 30th. I had to look, I have no idea. We are so excited. We're packing pallets, we're finishing everything, getting ready to go to the annual event. Tonight, we will ship everything down to Frisco, Texas, and we will be with you next week. We're so excited to meet for the 30th time as a Crown Council gathering. Hard to believe that it's that time of year again, but all the details are ready. We are excited to be with everybody and are looking forward to next week together. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. I've got a document I want to make sure that everyone sees. This is our little PDF that we are going to be sending out today, and you can scan that QR code if you would like. New this year, an annual event app, which is really fun, lists all the attendees, speakers. It allows you to interact with the resource partners and just a fun way for us to push information and make sure everybody is on the same page at the annual event. So if you want to download it here, download it at check-in. We're going to send out a little text message to everybody today with the link. A few other things, obviously, check in Thursday. It is an experience that lasts from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. You do not have to join for that full 8 hours, but do plan on some time together. It's not just to come and get your packet and walk away. We have a lot of fun and exciting, interesting things for your team to interact and enjoy the day with us, with our resource partners, whether it's mini golf or all the other activities that we have there. It is an experience, and we're looking forward to being together with you there. There's also golf. Weather is looking very good. This morning when we checked, 60s down in Frisco. So 60s on Thursday, Friday. And as it says there, there's one spot remaining for our golf tee times if you would like to golf on Thursday next week at the Omni PGA course. Beautiful courses. Friday night, I'll just read that. We were invited to bring a toy or doll in support of our spotlighted charity Friday night. So you're invited. Bring the gift with you on Friday to dinner, and there will be a place to drop off your gift inside the ballroom. We're going to highlight one of our Smiles for Life charities on Friday night during a really fun celebration of everyone that's raised more than $10,000. And we're going to highlight one of those charities that night, Friday night. So very good. Those are just some quick announcements about the annual event. Very excited, and I'll actually text this document out and some links to everyone's cell phone today who is joining us at the annual event, so you can see it that way too. Okay, very good. Stop sharing. Very good. We have a. Let's bring Alan in to the show, Alan Tuig, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about how we set him up and what's going on. Something new we're trying. So I'm gonna bring Alan in, and then we're gonna talk for just a minute. Hey,
Hello there.
I mean, when we were talking about you joining, I was like, dude, he's old at this now. You're like this is easy. You're a pro. Of course, you're know what's going on. So how are you?
I am great. Are you all set for the big annual event? Are you stressed out beyond all
I'm
recognition?
I'm physically we are prepared. Mentally and emotionally, we're still on the fence about it. What's crazy, Alan, is you would never think this. We become obsessive about watching the weather. I know that sounds
Oh,
I know that
yeah.
sounds so dumb, but there's been years in the past where like the whole East Coast is ice storms or
Yep.
Midwest is 12 feet of snow. And so we become obsessive about the weather is looking good. Everyone should be able to travel safely across the United States. So yeah, man.
Yep.
Very good.
That is a big factor for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
people can't get there this time of year. You never know.
I know. We've got 11 pallets of stuff we're going to ship tonight and tomorrow, loading them on the truck, and we're sending them off with a prayer that they arrive in
Wow.
Frisco safely.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so pretty cool.
Well, I'm super excited. I can't wait. It's going to be
Yeah,
great.
it is. Yeah, we agree. One of the most stressful and exciting times of the year for we hope everybody feels that way, that it's a great way to kick off the year and be together. And we're really looking forward to it. A year in the making. So we're excited.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I know the big events, they're a lot of work for sure, but
Yeah.
they are a lot of fun. And I've got my Barbie Ken outfit
Oh
ready to
boy.
go, so I'm set, man.
I'm nervous that all the men are going to show up in the same thing because when you Google like Ken outfits, there's not a whole lot of options out there for
Well,
so
yeah.
I'm going as Disco Ken. Um
Oh, okay.
we'll
All
see how it
right.
goes. Yeah. What do you got? You want to wait? You want to surprise us
I'm
or
gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna make it a surprise.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
We tried something new. This is our second week where the email network we prompted some of the doctors um, for questions, response, and a few of the things to generate some discussion, some masterminding, some networking. This is the second week we've done that, and I would say we're going to continue down this little path of hopefully bringing topics and things that are useful and creative that we can learn from our resource partners or even some of our doctor mentors. So Steve put it out there. Alan, is it okay if we review this first?
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay, okay, okay.
of course.
If you're on the email network, you saw this.
Yeah.
Um, Steve asked the membership, your experience or input would be appreciated for the following practice situation. He said, number one, a long-term hygienist has asked for a 4-week leave of absence to take some family issues. Her behavior leading up to the request has become more and more unpredictable. She has been resistant to recent changes that the practice has been working or making. Hygienists in the practice area are hard to find, as they are in many parts of the country. And there is a concern about granting this level of absence and the message it seems to send to the rest of the team. So we had some good responses to these questions. Have you ever faced a similar situation? If so, what did you do? Do you have a leave of absence policy in your employee handbook? And what concerns would you have about granting the request? And if you did grant it, what conditions would you put on it, if any?
Mm.
Alan, I know you didn't respond, but can we talk about maybe your first impressions, first thoughts about this little scenario that we posed to the membership?
Yeah, absolutely. And our HR specialist, who is kind of our go-to Crown HR specialist, Rebecca Bortfield, she saw this and she actually did type up a really nice response. And then since I was doing the live stream with you, I told her, well, hold off on that and I'll kind of go over everything with
Cool.
folks on the live stream. So I have Rebecca's thoughts as well as my thoughts. And
Let's do it.
so, and I'm going to apologize right off the bat because this is going to be for some people listening maybe a little bit anticlimactic because the answer to a lot of this is going to be it depends. And the reason it depends is that leave of absence related stuff varies widely around the country because a lot of it falls to the state level.
Mhm.
And of course, as we know, HR rules and regulations vary widely from state to state. They vary based on how many employees you have. And of course, California and Florida are like completely different planets when it comes to HR rules and laws and all that. Um, so the first thing with this would be, in a sense, what category does this leave of absence fall under? Now, it says there that it's some family issues. So in some states, there are leave of absence protections for medical related conditions for family members. So maybe a child has a serious medical condition, maybe a spouse has cancer, or a grandparent has fallen and they need to take care of their grandparent or something like that. So a number of states have those. One of the folks who responded, and a couple of folks who responded actually very correctly and astutely mentioned the federal FMLA. So the federal FMLA is a Federal Family Medical Leave Act. That one, as a couple of people pointed out, only applies if you have 50 or more employees.
Mhm.
So I think, am I correct that most of the Crown Council members probably have fewer than 50 employees?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, and that's normal. Most small practices have that. So for those who are above 50 employees, I'm sure they're already aware of the FMLA, and folks can certainly find me at the event next week if they want to learn more. But for the folks that have fewer than 50 employees, the federal FMLA does not apply. So other rules that might apply would be paid family leave. So about 13 states now have paid family leave. This functions kind of like unemployment insurance, where everybody pays into this big general fund. And then when an employee has a qualifying need for time off, then the employee is paid out of that general fund. So a number of states have those. It does vary a little bit based on size. It varies based on how long the employee has worked for the practice and their eligibility, and so on and so forth. And then the next type of protection would be sort of what Rebecca would call a mini FMLA or a
Mm.
state FMLA. So this is sort of a state version of the FMLA. So for example, Oregon has one. It's called OFLA. It's the Oregon Family Medical Leave Act. And so in that case, depending on the state, depending on the reason, depending on how many employees you may have a state family medical leave protection. And in a case like this, depending on what the specifics are of why this employee needs the time off for their, qualifying family member, then it may fall under the state rule as well. And the key thing is that you need to kind of figure out whether this particular leave of absence is in a sense protected by law. Because if the reason and the circumstances and so on are protected by law, then you as the employer basically have to go through the process of, okay, what is the reason? How much time off do you need?
Mm.
What are in a sense, the accommodations that the business needs to make? Is it 4 weeks uninterrupted? Is it intermittent leave? Is it slightly different work schedule? Um, and for example, we have a form that folks would use where they would give that form to the employee, and the employee then would, depending on the family member, would basically have this form signed by the family member's treating physician. And
Mm.
it's called a medical certification. And the certification then would say, okay, this family member needs X amount of weeks off, or in a sense, the employee needs X weeks off to care for the family member whose medical condition is XYZ. So it's a matter of first knowing, do you have to grant this leave of absence? Because if you have to grant it, then some of the other questions about, well, she's been resistant to change, and what will the rest of the team think? In some ways, that's a moot point, because if the practice is required by law to grant this, then the message to the team, if say some team members are going, well, why is so and so taking this time off? We can't be down a person, da da da. The answer to that question from the practice owner is basically, our hands are tied here. We're under this paid family leave protection, or we're under the state family leave protection. We have to grant it. And so that's kind of a way to sort of, tell the employees that we sort of have to do this.
Mm.
Now, another really important thing for people to keep in mind is, what have they done in the past? Let's say a year or two ago, another employee had a family medical issue. Did the practice grant a leave of absence for that employee? And if they
Right.
did, then we sort of have an established precedent. And then if we say to this employee, well, no, we're not going to approve your leave of absence, I guarantee you they're going to know that a year or two ago the practice gave a leave of absence for another employee. And then that sets up the potential for certainly morale issues. It
Mm.
also can set up the potential for a discrimination case if the current employee falls into some sort of protected class. Maybe they are in a protected minority and the person who got it a couple years ago is not a minority. And now it's like, okay, now it looks like a discrimination case.
Hmm.
So those are some considerations with it.
Hmm.
And then another piece also to keep in mind, and this may not be applicable in this particular case because it sounds like the employee has been, a little bit unpredictable and unreliable, but um, let's say the practice wanted to deny this leave of absence request, and let's say that the reason for the request is something that the other employees kind of want to rally behind. Maybe it is that the employee's spouse has cancer or something like that, and they need to take some time off to take care of them while the spouse goes through treatment. You can imagine how the rest of the team would respond if they found out that you denied a leave of absence request for that particular reason. They might say, oh my gosh, how insensitive, how
Hmm.
heartless of you to do that. Um, there's also the concern with these kinds of things of, well, what if the employee or somebody went on social media and said, oh, Dr. So and so is such a mean guy. He, denied this claim when, the employee's spouse was in a time of need, things like that. So those are all things to keep in mind. But in general, the biggest starting point is just, do you fall under one of these state or federal leave of absence protection laws? In which case, you basically have to go down the process of that. Now, having said that, to be clear, these state rules and state protections are not a blank check. They're not saying to the employee, you can take off as much time as you want. You can be gone for 3 years and we'll hold your job. That's not what these things say. There are time limits, there are processes, there's paperwork, there's things that the employee has to do. And if they don't do them, then yes, we can go down a path of replacing them or not holding their job or something like that. So it's a fairly complicated process, but it does have pretty well-defined steps, and there are employer protections, there are employee protections. So there's a very long-winded part of it there.
No, it's good. And what's interesting is with a lot of these issues, challenges and practices for years, we've talked about creating a culture guide, creating a handbook for the practice, creating something that when it comes time uh, for issues like this, for challenges like this, that the office already has a prepared system for walking employees through what exactly um, they will do and we will do. So it's not up in the air trying to figure it out like, oh, well, for you, we did this, but 3 years ago, we did this. I mean, that's a recipe for an upset team is not having a defined system for when it comes to stuff like this.
Absolutely. Yeah, big time. And it's also, in some ways, a nice, good comprehensive policy is sort of a cheat sheet for the manager or the doctor, too,
Yeah.
because then, yeah, they don't have to remember, okay, how did we handle medical insurance last time? Did we keep paying for it or did the employee pay for it? Or, you know, uh, what happens if we find out that the employee took another job while they were on the leave of absence? Or
Right.
what happens if they don't show up on the return date? What forms do I have to use? All of that kind of stuff should be spelled out in the policy, and it should be all, crystal clear, detailed, and of course it needs to be up to date because these things do change over time,
Yeah.
where a given state may pass a new little tweak to their leave of absence protection rules. Or for example, some states, will pass something around pregnancy, but then later they'll expand that into adoption or surrogacy, or expand it more generally into just parental leave. So it's not even specifically about pregnancy.
Mm.
So those are all, again, important reminders of making sure that if your handbook is a few years old, that you go through some sort of process, with us or somebody to keep it up to date.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah.
Alan, you sent me other possible topics that we could talk about today. We covered one. Are there any that you want to hit, or do you want me to pick one? What do you want to do next?
Um, I want you to pick one because I
Okay.
like the idea of you just surprising me with one. But let me say one other thing that I forgot to mention earlier about
Okay.
this scenario. So I just wanted to kind of highlight a point. So in this scenario, it's a hygienist and she's been resistant to changes and um, you know just hasn't. It sounds like hasn't been very predictable and all of that. And I just want to um, remind folks of how important it is to address performance related issues when they come
Mm.
up.
Okay.
So I totally understand kind of how as business owners and leaders we kind of we're always looking at the big picture. You know, we're looking at what are the laws, but then also how's this employee been performing, and we're kind of taking all of it into account. In this particular case, we would want to separate the leave of absence and the fact that the employee has been resistant to change. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't address the fact that she's been resistant to changes. We absolutely need to address that. We need to sit down, we need to talk to her about that. Obviously, we can't do that while she's on a leave of absence, but it's just a good reminder that when issues come up with employees, it's best to try to get ahead of that and address it right away. You know,
Mm.
sit down with the employee, figure out what's going on, talk to them, what are their concerns, and see if we can address that. A very, very, very common example of this is when you've got an employee that's not performing very well. You kind of feel like in your head, maybe we're going down a termination path. I don't know if this person's going to, turn it
Mm.
around. And then while you're kind of waiting and procrastinating and thinking about it and all of that, then the person says, I'm pregnant, or then they have a needle stick and now they're on a workers' comp claim, or they have some sort of issue with their family member and now they're under some sort of protection. And so um, we've heard that story millions of times. And so it's just a good reminder that if you're going down that path of performance management, stay down that path and make sure that you take care of that when you can.
Got it.
Okay,
Great
just
advice.
wanted to say that.
No, excellent advice. Um, I think that this other topic kind of rolls into a little bit about what we've talked about, which is attendance.
Okay.
Can we address that? So the question is how do we address attendance problems or challenges, especially in the tight, there's a good part in the tight labor market where you can't find replacements quickly, or maybe, like you're walking that line of like, well, I can't be too harsh here. Like, what if they quit? Can we talk about that for just a minute? Your advice?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So it ties in greatly with what I just said a minute ago. So what you don't want to do is wait until the person has had attendance issues for 6 months or a year and then sit down and try to address it. You want to kind of walk this line where initially maybe you're compassionate. Let's say it's a scenario where the employee has just a lot of illness, their kid is sick all the time, or
Mm.
their spouse is sick. Just one of those things where it seems like somebody is sick all day, every day. Um, initially, we all get sick, right? Everyone has that now and again. So the first time it happens, it's not that you want to immediately sit them down and say, okay, all right, what's going on? You gotta shape up or ship out. Um, but having said that, the second time, the third time, we want to sit down with someone and just say, obviously, once they're better and they come back, then we want to sit down and say, okay, let's talk about this. Let's figure out what we can do, to have this person be able to attend work more consistently. Um, and it's one of these areas where I think a lot of practice leaders want to step in and try to solve the problem for the employee. And bring in things like, well, when I was raising my kids, this is what I did, or well, have you considered doing this instead of that? Um, in general, we don't recommend that because I think sometimes it can just lead to a little bit of a slippery slope where we're kind of blurring the lines between almost being a friend and being an employer. So um, we recommend basically keeping it at a performance level where we say, look, our expectation is that everyone's here and they're here on a reliable and consistent basis. We feel like so far over the last X number of months that you've missed a little bit too much work. And so we'd like to see you correct that and be here more often. And for that initial sit down, it doesn't have to be real formal. It doesn't have to be something big in writing. I would highly recommend making your tone and your language be very positive, very like, look, we love you. We want to have you here. You're a great employee. You're a wonderful asset for the patients, and you being here fits in with all of our big practice goals that we all want to achieve. And so, let's in a sense, let's turn this around. And then you see what happens. And the hope is that the employee will take steps and whatever those might be that they can do. Again, it's their problem to solve, whether it's different daycare options, whether it's, leaning on their spouse or significant other or their family to take care of the kids so they don't do it as much. Whatever it is, we want them to solve the problem, and not the employer to step
Mhm.
in and try to do that.
Smart.
Um, Now, I will say, backing up a little bit, let's say we don't know exactly why the employee is having the attendance issues. That would be the first step. And if I was talking to a client who called in and said, "Hey, my employee is having attendance issues," that would be my first question: is why? Why is the employee having these attendance issues? Is it illness? Is it that they're having trouble with their car? Is it, they can't get up early enough to get it to work on time? We certainly want to understand why, first and foremost. But in general, uh, similar to what we talked about earlier, there are some states, for example, that have mandatory paid sick leave laws. A whole bunch of states have that now. And caring for yourself or a child who is sick is covered under those mandatory sick leave laws. And what that means is that those absences that fall under that protected sick leave, those are protected. And so, in a sense, those particular absences can't be used against the employee in terms of being terminated for that, performance reviews, not getting a raise because of those particular absences. So, for folks who are in a state that have mandatory sick leave, just make sure that you almost have like two different lists. You have
Mm.
a list going of absences that are protected, and you have a list of absences that are not protected. And then basically, I mean, it is one of these things where ultimately, if it doesn't get better, then as an employer, you kind of are faced with that really tough choice where you're either going to have to try to make it work with this person being gone a lot and all the downsides of them missing work, the downsides of other employees seeing that and the employee, in a sense, getting away with it, versus letting the employee go and then having to find a replacement. And obviously, that's a rock and a hard place kind of a deal, but
Right.
ultimately, that's where it goes.
Yeah. Tricky. And it's funny as you talk about, I'm imagining myself as this employee, right? I'm imagining myself being in this team, and all day long, we're giving advice about how to work with practices that have challenges with team culture, right? So, um, how do I solve the culture of our practice to be the very best for patients and for team members? And everything that you share, Alan, everything that we talk about, which is why it's so cool to have you with us, is this, even though it feels like a lot, right? Like creating this handbook and going through all these scenarios. I'm like, there is no better way to show a team that you care, that your culture is dialed, than thinking through these things and having a plan, having a handbook, and when these challenges arise, you don't flounder around trying to figure out like, oh man, what do, well, I've never thought about that before. I mean, what a great way to show the team that your culture means so much, is to have thought about these things and how to have a great plan prepared before they even arise.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great reminder because I think it sometimes with these HR things, it's easy to say, oh, it's boring and it's just legalese, stuff that we got to deal with. And sometimes people think, well, the only purpose of the handbook is, when an employee is screwing up, we'll use it
Right.
to fire them. You also need to remember that for your good employees, which of course the vast majority of the employees in your practice are great employees, for them, they do want consistency and fairness, and they want, plans in place so that when this happens, we're not scrambling and trying to figure it out on the fly.
Right.
And in a sense, they want to know what success looks like. And so defining that success in terms of policy manual, job descriptions, consistent standard operating procedures, all of those things are just absolutely critical for a well-run practice, and especially for all the big goals that a dentist may have of, dropping insurance or going down a path of implementing some new technology or whatever those big goals might be. You need a really solid team to get you there. So
Nice. I love
yeah,
that.
all this stuff is necessary.
I'm going to share my desktop, Alan. Alan, resource partner with Crown Counsel, fairly new. Grateful to have you with us. This is your webpage, Crown Counsel's webpage for you, where we kind of park our little interviews that we've done in the past. Maybe just spend 1 minute, Alan. I'm a dentist in the elevator, and you're going to tell me what you do for a job. I mean, what's the best? I would encourage every Crown Counsel member to know you, to work with you. But you tell me, what would you say to a new doc who's considering working with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much every dentist struggles at some point in their career with the HR side of the practice. And we have a really nice HR system that combines technology and coaching. And it basically makes all this confusing, chaotic world of HR much easier. And so we do all the legwork of keeping things up to date, creating all the HR materials that you need, and then our HR specialists are available via phone and email anytime you've got a question. There's no extra charge. It's not complicated. You just pick up the phone, you give us a call, and you can get answers to whatever's coming up with the team. Pregnancy, alcohol and drug use, attendance issues, terminations, hiring, all of that stuff. You can just reach out to us anytime you want. And I think folks just find that it's super calming. It inspires confidence and peace of mind to just know that it's all just taken care of.
Yeah,
And it's just one of those areas that allows you to, have a team and have that team be successful and allows you, more time to focus on other areas of practice. So,
very cool.
yeah.
And last time you emailed me, we talked a little bit about these resources that are just available on your website, articles and publications, and your own podcast. Come on. All right.
Yeah, we've been doing that for about a year, and
Cool.
we do episodes about every other week or so, and it's just, little episodes about what's going on in the world of HR and some how-to stuff and all that. Yeah, it's
Very
fun.
cool. Thank you, Alan. I'll see you next week. Grateful you joined
Yes.
me today. And here we go.
Yeah, well, thanks again as always, and yeah, look forward to seeing you next week.
Hey, man. Thanks so much. Grateful you'd be on today.
All righty. Take care.
Hey, see ya. He knows so much. Grateful for Alan. Thankful for the time he would spend to be with us, and especially that he would share what he knows with the Crown Council in a way that is very educational. Not really looking for anything other than to help and to educate. So I'm going to share my screen for this next portion of the live stream. I wanted to highlight just a few things. This is crowncouncil.com, and if you click on my directory, you'll see here the premium member hub, which is available to all Crown Council members, paying Crown Council members. A few of these are just so fun to work through. We are updating Skill of the Week all the time. Our Mentor of the Month series that we updated and just did with Deborah Gray King. You saw some of that a couple weeks ago. And I wanted to go to our powerful team meetings. These are old annual event speakers who join us on stage, who then we make a little longer team meeting about that person. So we take a clip from their speech, not the whole thing, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we create a action item and an activity, an exercise that you as a team can do together. This is a little more involved than just the skill of the weeks. There's some great fundamental principles in here for culture of the team, as well as an exercise that you could work on for like a month or two. Really fun things that you can learn together, as well as reviewing some of the things that we learn at the annual event. So you can see here we have over 70 incredible walk down memory lane as you look at all of these. We are going to highlight one of them today, one of the episodes that we just love and are often quoting, and we're going to share it at the annual event. So if you see this at the annual event, I wanted to kind of preemptively share with you the power of the honk with Neil Jeffrey. We've had him on the stage twice, and I thought it'd be fun to share his little powerful team meeting with you today. If you haven't seen it, as a taste of what this is like, the 9th annual event, which I think was 2007. It's in the video, but I'm going to play this. As you can see here, there's a team exercise that you can download, meaning the what you can do after you watch it. So anyway, I'm going to play this. I might stop it short of the exercise, but you'll get the idea.
Power of the honk. Geese have discovered how to encourage another goose. They honk. Now, you see them flying over, and then a big thing, and they're flying over, and you see them, you can hear them honking, and they're honking. You know what they discovered a honk to a goose is? Hey, I believe in you guys. Hey, we can do this. Keep on flapping those wings. We got a long way to go. Don't quit. And they honk. They encourage one another because everybody needs encouragement. And it's a long road. It's a long battle. And there are great obstacles along the way. But how wonderful it is to have somebody behind me that keeps on honking and keeps on encouraging. Now, the idea is you can't just honk. It needs to be an encouraging honk. Otherwise, it's just honking. It needs to be a good word, uplifting word, a positive word. I believe you can. Yes, let's go. We can do it. And they honk. I love that idea just of the honk. It's just honk. That's what a goose honk. You got to love that. Just the power of somebody who, you know what, believes in me, and especially if you're that lead goose. And of course, nobody gets the brunt of the stuff as the lead goose. And of course, everybody thinks the lead goose, the dentist, the doctor, the coach, whoever it is, doesn't need encouragement. The fact is, maybe nobody needs as much encouragement as they do from time to time. And how wonderful it is to be out there leading, flapping, leading the whole group, and to hear somebody from behind going, "Honk!" How powerful that is. And then when the lead goose, the head guy, CEO, doctor, whoever that is, comes by and just honks for everybody else on the team, just walks through the office and just honk, honk, just honking to everybody. How powerful it is when everybody honks. You know what, about 10 years ago, I was doing a pregame pep talk for the Baylor University soccer team just before they played at the University of Texas in a regional final soccer match. Now, a bunch of the guys on that team at Baylor had been in my youth group up in Dallas, in Plano, and I watched them play as kids growing up, and so that it's a big moment in their life. And they asked me to come fire up the team. So I go down there, and I'm with those guys in the locker room. I mean, they're focused. They're foaming at the mouth. They are ready to play. Well, I used this, essentially, the same outline about the geese, what they do, and about the honking. And you know what? I honked for them Right there in the locker, just like I honked for you. I went, honk! Well, I did the thing. Well, at the end, I said, okay, guys, I want us all to honk. And right there in that locker room, I'm talking the whole Baylor soccer team went, honk! I mean, it was glorious. Well, in the game, we were behind 2-1 near the end of the game. We score at the end of the game and tie this thing up. It's now 2-2. Of course, at the end of the game, what you do in a soccer game is tied up. You do a overtime period. It's still tied. Well, you know what you do after that? You do a second overtime period. They play that. It's still tied. Then you know what you do? You do a shootout. It's where 5 of your guys shoot at their goalie to see how many score, and 5 of their guys shoot at our goalie, see how many guys score. Well, their guy goes first. University takes the guy. He takes the ball, puts it down, he goes back. He scores. Our guy goes next. Brody was his name. He takes the ball, puts it down, backs up. Troy Newsom on the sideline lets out a honk. As soon as he honked, all the other guys on the team who had honked on, all the other guys started honking as well. Then all the moms and dads who were in the stands who had no idea what was going on, but they started honking also. I'm talking the whole Baylor side is honking. We won that shootout. We won that game. You know what? I'm convinced it was the power of the honk. Everybody needs a honk, and everybody needs to be honking. So right now, what we're going to do, on the count of 3, we are going to honk. Now, I don't want some sissy wimpy honk, okay? I want your best honk, and we are going to blow the roof off this thing with your honk. Now, on 3, well, now, don't leave me hanging up here, okay? I want your best ever, and by you, you're saying, you know, I am going to be a honker. Here we go, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh! Is that good or what? The power of the honk. You know what? Geese get to where they're going through all the stuff because somebody is honking. You know what? It's tragic. Too many teams never have anybody honk. Too few homes have anybody honking for them. Too few kids have a dad or a mom who's honking for that kid as he goes out in all the struggles of school and high school and stuff. You just keep encouraging, son, you can. Honey, you can do this. Too few wives are honking for their husbands. Husbands honking for their wives. It's the power of saying, you know what? Yes, I want to be a champion. Yes, I want to go higher, swifter, stronger. Yes, I want to be everything I can possibly be. Yes, I want to be the best in everything I do. Yes, but in the midst of that, you know what? I am going to take as many people with me as possible. That's why I am going to honk. You know what? I hope if anybody walks down the sidewalk by my house, if they listen, they just might hear some honking going on in my house. I hope people, when they see me interact with my wife, they see a husband who's encouraging and loving his wife, who's honking for her. Kids, that they see a dad who's encouraging and inspiring his kids through his love, his example, his leadership, belief, and he's honking. The power of the honk. You know this. You got to where you are today because somebody believed in you and somebody honked. And the challenge is, you know what? I'm going to pass that honk.
What a great memory, a fun thing to reminisce about and to remember. Power of the honk. So we're going to focus a little bit about that at an activity and something fun at the annual event. So we look forward to sharing that with you and may even play a little bit of that video. So grateful for Neil Jeffrey and all the time and things he's taught to the Crown Council. So that's a bit of the end of the show today. I asked for your little forgiveness. A a lot going on with the annual event, so we're a little short on time here with what we've produced. But we'll be with you next week at the annual event. We'll come to you live Thursday from the ballroom, from our check-in, and we're looking forward to being with everybody. So thanks for joining today, and we'll see you next week. Thanks. All good? We good? We out?